Let me tell you something that's going to make your blood boil. Right now, today, there's a weed-killing compound that costs less than $2 that was used by farmers across this country in the 1800s that works faster and deeper than anything Roundup has ever made. And the chemical industry has spent the last 40 years trying to make sure you never find out it exists. $2, that's it. Not 20, not 200. $2 for a bottle of something that will dissolve the root systems of the nastiest weeds on your property. Dandelions, thistle, bindweed, crabgrass, you name it, without poisoning your soil, without leaving behind carcinogenic residue, and without writing a check to the same corporations that just lobbied Congress to keep their garbage herbicide on store shelves. They don't want you to know this. The big box garden centers don't want you to know this. The chemical companies who sell you $4 bottles of diluted trash definitely don't want you to know this. But I'm going to tell you because this is exactly the kind of knowledge that used to be common sense before they spent 100 years burying it under marketing. Before they banned this kind of talk online, and trust me, they are trying. Let's get into it. Here's who the villain is in this story. It's not one company. It's an entire industry that was born in the 1940s when Monsanto, yes, that Monsanto, began mass-producing synthetic herbicides as a byproduct of their chemical weapons research after World War II. Atrazine, 2,4-D, and eventually glyphosate, all of them came out of the same pipeline as nerve agent research. The government does not want you to know that connection, and neither does the industry that inherited it. By the 1970s, Roundup was on the market. By the 1990s, it had captured over 60% of the global herbicide market. And here's what they did to get there. They systematically discredited, dismissed, and buried every natural low-cost alternative that had been working for farmers for generations. They funded university extension programs. They sponsored agricultural schools. They lobbied the USDA and EPA to classify natural compounds as unregistered pesticides, requiring expensive approval processes that no small company or independent farmer could ever afford. The trap they set was elegant. I'll give them that. If you use a natural compound on your weeds and call it a herbicide, even if it's something your great-grandmother used, you are technically violating EPA pesticide registration law. They weaponized regulation to eliminate the competition, and the competition was $2 a bottle of something every grocery store already carries. Here's the specific technical detail that proves this was intentional. In 2014, the EPA sent warning letters to multiple small organic farming companies for marketing horticultural vinegar as a weed killer, even though the active compound, acetic acid, had been documented as a phytotoxic agent in peer-reviewed agricultural science going back to 1881. 1881. The science was over a century old. They didn't care. Because if people figured this out, Roundup dies. Here's what smart gardeners and old-school farmers already know. Acetic acid, the active compound in vinegar, is one of the most effective contact herbicides ever documented. When applied at sufficient concentration, it denatures the proteins in plant cell membranes on contact, causing rapid cellular collapse. The plant doesn't just wilt, it dies from the outside in, and at the right concentration, it follows the vascular tissue down into the root system. Your standard 5% white vinegar from the grocery store will handle young annual weeds, seedlings, sprouts, anything that hasn't built deep root mass yet. That's your entry-level tool. But here's where it gets serious. Horticultural vinegar, which runs between 10 and 30% acetic acid concentration, has documented efficacy on established perennial weeds. Studies conducted by the USDA Agricultural Research Service, their own scientists, published in their own journals, confirmed in 2002 that 20% acetic acid killed weeds as effectively as glyphosate in controlled trials. Their own research, buried. The compound they buried goes back further than most people realize. Farmers in the 1800s used a combination of acetic acid from fermented plant waste, salt, and sometimes a small amount of liquid soap as a surfactant. This three-part compound, vinegar, salt, dish soap, works on a mechanism that Roundup cannot replicate. The salt draws moisture out of plant tissue through osmosis. The acid collapses cell walls. The soap strips the waxy cuticle off the leaf surface, so both compounds penetrate faster and deeper. It's a delivery system. 3 ingredients. Total cost, under $2 per application. Dealers will never tell you this because there is no margin in it. There's no patent on acetic acid. There's no subscription service. There's no proprietary blend they can charge you $15 for in a yellow plastic bottle. This is why mechanics buy old trucks and farmers used to save their own seed, because the old ways worked. And the people selling you the new ways need you to forget that. Let me give you the documented evidence. The USDA study I mentioned, Weed Technology, Volume 16, 2002, authored by researchers at the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center, tested 5, 10, and 20% acetic acid solutions against broadleaf and grass weeds. 20% achieved 95 to 100% kill rates on established broadleaf weeds within 24 hours. The study is publicly available. They published it, then the industry lobbied to make sure it never became mainstream conversation. Here's the exact formula. Write this down. This is the 1800s compound that still works today, and it will cost you under $2 per batch when you source the components correctly. You need 3 things. First, horticultural vinegar at 20% acetic acid concentration. This is available at farm supply stores. Tractor Supply carries it, Rural King carries it, and you can order it online. Do not use industrial-grade glacial acetic acid. That is 99% concentration and is dangerous to handle without proper equipment. 20% is your target. It's sold legally as a cleaning agent and pH adjuster, which is exactly how you should buy it. Second, plain table salt or rock salt, sodium chloride, 1 cup per gallon of solution. The salt does 2 things. It disrupts the osmotic balance of plant cells, and it temporarily alters soil chemistry at the surface to prevent immediate regrowth in treated areas. Do not overdo the salt if you plan to replant in that area within a season. For permanent hardscape areas, driveways, sidewalk cracks, gravel paths, use it freely. For garden beds you want to replant, keep the salt ratio at the lower end, or skip it entirely and rely on concentration alone. Third, liquid dish soap, 1 tablespoon per gallon. This is your surfactant. It breaks down the waxy cuticle on the leaf surface, the plant's natural water-resistant coating, and allows the acetic acid to penetrate directly into the plant tissue instead of beading off. Any brand works. Dawn, store brand, doesn't matter. 1 tablespoon. Now here's what to look for in terms of results. Apply on a sunny day with no rain forecast for at least 24 hours. Sunlight accelerates the reaction. The UV exposure combined with the acid denatures plant proteins faster. You will see visible wilting within 2 to 4 hours on most annual weeds. Within 24 hours, established broadleaf weeds will show brown collapsed tissue. Within 48 to 72 hours, the root kill on shallow-rooted species will be complete. For deep-rooted perennials, I'm talking creeping thistle, bindweed, Japanese knotweed, you will need multiple applications. This is not a single-shot solution for the worst offenders, and I'm not going to lie to you about that. But here's the thing, neither is Roundup. The difference is, your second and third applications of this compound cost you 50 cents, not $12, and you're not leaving glyphosate residue in your soil that persists for up to 6 months. Specific application notes, use a pump sprayer and apply directly to the foliage. Do not dilute further, wear eye protection and gloves. 20% acetic acid will irritate skin and eyes on contact. This is a real chemical, not a gentle product. Keep it off desirable plants. This is a non-selective compound. If you're working near garden beds, use cardboard shields or apply with a paintbrush to individual weeds. Target the base of the stem and the crown of the root where it meets the soil surface. That's where the vascular tissue concentrates, and that's where your penetration will be deepest. For driveways and hardscape areas, you can increase the salt concentration significantly and apply a heavy soak. In these applications, you are essentially sterilizing the surface for the season. Nothing will want to grow back through a heavily salted hardscape. This is what road crews in the 1800s used on cobblestone and brick paths. It's not a new idea. It's an old idea that got replaced by a patented chemical when someone figured out there was money in the replacement. Let me tell you what this is really about, because it's bigger than weeds. They want you trapped. They want you dependent on a product that requires a supply chain, a patent holder, a retail distributor, and a quarterly earnings report. They want every problem you have in your yard, your garden, your driveway to have a solution that routes money through a corporation. That's the business model. That's why the government does not want you to know that the solution has been sitting in your pantry since before your grandfather was born. This is why mechanics buy old trucks, because an old truck is something you can fix with tools you already own, parts you can source from 3 different suppliers, and knowledge that hasn't been locked behind a dealership's proprietary diagnostic system. The old ways were built for people, not for profit margins. And the same principle applies here. The old compound, the old formula, the knowledge that was passed down before the chemical industry decided to sell you something worse at 1,000% markup. Before they ban this kind of content, and the pressure is real, because there are lobbying groups actively pushing platforms to restrict unapproved pesticide advice. Save this. Share it. Print it out if you have to. Because what I'm telling you is documented in public USDA research, in 19th century agricultural records, and the lived knowledge of every farmer who was growing food before Monsanto told them they needed permission to kill a weed. Here is how to fight back. Go buy a gallon of horticultural vinegar, 20%, add your salt and your soap, test it on the worst weed in your driveway this weekend, watch it work within hours, and then ask yourself, why didn't anyone tell me this? Why was I paying $15 for a bottle of something that's been linked to cancer that the WHO classified as a probable human carcinogen in 2015 when this has always existed? The answer is money. The answer is always money. And the first step to fighting back is refusing to spend yours on their trap. Drop a comment below. Tell me what weed problem you're dealing with. Tell me if this worked for you. Tell me what other compounds they've buried that you want me to dig up next. Because this is what this channel is for. The knowledge they don't want spreading. See you in the next one.